Jack had been on the road for days, his boots worn and his spirit weary. The sun was dipping low behind the rugged mountains, and all he wanted was a place to rest his head. The desert heat had drained him, and the cold of the coming night promised no comfort without shelter. He had heard tales of a nearby Apache village where travelers sometimes found refuge, though few outsiders dared to venture there. But desperate times called for desperate measures. As he approached the small cluster of adobe homes, Jack's heart pounded with a mixture of hope and apprehension. The villagers eyed him warily, their gazes sharp and guarded. Jack wasn't just any wanderer. He was a stranger in a land that had its own rules and customs, many of which he didn't understand. He was led to the largest dwelling by a woman with piercing dark eyes and a commanding presence. Her name was Nayeli, one of the widows who had lost her husband in recent skirmishes. Alongside her were two other women, quiet but watchful, who introduced themselves as Ayana and Chet. All three shared a solemn history, bound by loss and resilience. Jack's intention was simple: to find shelter for the night. But the three women saw something else in him: a potential partner, a protector, a new beginning. In their culture, widows often came together to support each other, and sometimes they sought a new husband to help carry the burdens of survival. The idea of sharing a husband wasn't unusual in their community. It was a bond that strengthened their family and tribe. As the night settled in, Jack sat by the fire with the three widows, their stories unfolding like threads in the flickering light. They spoke of love and loss, of battles fought and peace sought. Jack listened, fascinated and humbled by their strength and grace. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this peaceful night might mark the start of something far more complicated than a simple shelter. The three women, bound by grief and hope, were already imagining a future with him, and that future might not be easy to refuse. The night air was cool and crisp, filled with the scent of sage and burning wood. Jack lay on the simple mat that Nayeli had prepared for him near the fire, the warmth contrasting with the chill creeping through the air. His mind raced, torn between relief at finding a safe place and curiosity about the women who had taken him in. As the fire crackled, Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenoa gathered around him, their eyes reflecting both caution and something soft. "We know who you are," Nayeli said quietly, her voice steady but tinged with something unspoken. "A man passing through is not often welcomed here, but you carry yourself with honor." Jack shifted uneasily. "I'm just looking for shelter, nothing more. I don't want to cause trouble." Ayana smiled faintly, her gaze kind but firm. "Sometimes, shelter is more than a roof and a bed. Sometimes, it's a new family." Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The stories these women shared of their past lives, their husbands lost in battles defending their people, weighed heavily on him. They had lived through heartbreak, but also through unwavering strength. Chenoa reached out and placed her hand on his. "We want you to stay," she said softly. "Not just for the night. We want you to be our husband." The words hit Jack like a thunderclap. His first instinct was to refuse, to get up and leave before things got more complicated. But looking into their eyes, the desperation, the hope, the vulnerability, he hesitated. He knew little of Apache customs, but the idea of sharing a husband was foreign, challenging everything he understood about relationships. Yet, these women weren't offering him something casual. They were offering a partnership built on trust and survival. Nahel's voice broke through his thoughts. "We will be equals. You will have our respect and loyalty, and we will share our lives with you. You will never walk alone." Jack sat back down, the firelight dancing across their faces. He didn't know what the future held, but the warmth in that small room felt like more than just the fire. It was a flicker of something rare and precious. "Let me think about it," he said finally. The three widows nodded, understanding the gravity of his choice. That night, as Jack drifted to sleep, he realized he had come looking for a bed and found the crossroads of his life. The morning sun spilled over the horizon, casting golden light across the village and awakening the desert with soft warmth. Jack rose slowly, the events of the previous night still swirling in his mind. He sat outside, watching as the village came alive, children laughing, elders sharing stories, and women preparing meals over open fires. Nayeli approached, carrying a woven basket filled with freshly gathered herbs and berries. Her movements were deliberate and graceful, a quiet confidence radiating from her. "Come," she said gently. "There is much to learn if you stay." Jack followed her into the heart of the village, where the rhythm of life was deeply connected to the land and the traditions passed down through generations. Nayeli began to explain the customs and the importance of community in Apache life. "You see," Nayeli said, "we are bound not only by family but by our respect for the earth and each other. Marriage is more than love, here it is survival, trust, and partnership." As they walked, Ayana and Chenua joined them, each carrying a part of the day's work, Ayana with clay pots and Chenua with weaving tools. You must understand, Ayana added, that sharing a husband is not about possession but about harmony. Each of us has a role to play, and together we are stronger. Jack listened intently, absorbing the wisdom in their words. They taught him about the sacred ceremonies, the significance of the seasons, and how every action held meaning. Throughout the day, Jack found himself drawn into the daily rhythms, helping gather firewood, preparing food, and even attempting to learn the Apache language. The widows guided him patiently, their gentle laughter easing the awkwardness of his fumbling attempts. Yet beneath the surface, Jack wrestled with his own doubts and fears. Could he truly belong here? Could he share his life with 3 women who had suffered so much? And was he ready to embrace a culture so different from his own? As evening approached, the widows invited him to a small gathering near the fire. Under the vast star-filled sky, they performed a traditional song and invocation for strength and unity. Jack felt a stirring deep within, a connection to something ancient and powerful. When the song ended, Nayeli looked at him with steady eyes. You are not just a guest here, you are part of us now. Jack nodded, the weight of her words settling in. The journey he had begun seeking shelter had led him to a place where belonging meant embracing both joy and sacrifice. The road ahead was uncertain, but Jack knew one thing. He was ready to walk it with Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenua by his side. The days that followed settled into a rhythm of shared work and quiet moments, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. Jack was learning more about the Apache ways, and the 3 widows were learning to trust him. Yet, trust was a fragile thing in a world that had not been kind to outsiders, especially those who dared step into the heart of a close-knit community. One afternoon, as Jack helped repair a section of the village fence, Nayeli pulled him aside. Her expression was serious, eyes scanning the distant horizon. There have been rumors, she said quietly, that a band of raiders is moving closer to our lands. They have targeted villages before stealing, destroying, and leaving no survivors. Jack's pulse quickened. The peaceful sanctuary he had found was now shadowed by an impending threat. We need to prepare, Nayeli continued. But more than weapons and defenses, we need unity. That is why we want you to stand with us, not just as a husband, but as a protector. Jack looked at the 3 women, Nayeli, fierce and determined, Ayana calm and steady, and Chenua, quiet but resolute. They had lost husbands to violence and bloodshed. Now, they were asking him to join them, not just in peace but in battle. That night, around the fire, the village elders gathered to discuss their strategy. Jack listened as plans were made, and a strange feeling settled over him, a mix of fear, responsibility, and resolve. As the days passed, Jack trained alongside the warriors, learning to wield a bow and arrow, to track footprints in the sand, and to move silently through the brush. The widows watched closely, offering encouragement and support, their faith in him growing stronger. But challenges weren't just external. Within the household, old wounds surfaced. The widows each carried their grief differently. Nahel's pride sometimes clashed with Jack's uncertainty. Ayana's gentle heart wrestled with jealousy, and Chenua's quiet nature masked moments of doubt. One evening, after a disagreement over the village's defenses, tensions boiled over. Voices were raised, accusations whispered. Jack found himself caught between 3 strong women, each with her own pain and desires. Yet, as the stars rose and silence returned, they came together, acknowledging their fears and hopes. The strength of their bond was tested, but also deepened. The threat of raiders loomed, and with it, the need to stand united. Jack realized that being part of this family meant facing dangers both outside and within, and that love, trust, and courage would be the weapons they wielded. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the village, as Jack stood watch atop a rocky outcrop. The air was tense, every rustle of wind or distant call of a bird sharpening his senses. The warnings had come true. The raiders were near, and the village prepared for the worst. Inside the village, Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenua moved with practiced urgency. Mothers gathered their children, elders took up what weapons they could, and the warriors positioned themselves around the perimeter. Jack's heart pounded, not just with fear, but with a fierce determination. This was no longer just a place to sleep, which is home, and these women were his family. As the sun slipped behind the mountains, a sudden cry pierced the air. Shadows emerged, figures moving swiftly, dark shapes against the twilight. The raid had begun. Chaos erupted. Jack grabbed his bow, taking aim as arrows whistled past him. Nayeli fought with a spear, her strength and skill belying the loss she carried. Ayana tended to the wounded, her hands steady despite the blood staining her clothes. Chenoa moved through the crowd, guiding children to safety with quiet courage. Amidst the fury, Jack found himself face to face with a raider. The clash was brutal, but his resolve was unwavering. He fought not just for survival, but for the future he was beginning to believe in. When dawn finally broke, the raiders had been driven off, leaving the village battered but standing. The cost was heavy: homes damaged, supplies lost, and a few brave souls injured. Yet the spirit of the Apache people remained unbroken. In the aftermath, Jack tended to Nayeli's wounds by the fire. She winced but smiled faintly. "You fought well," she said, her voice soft but proud. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "We fought together." Ayana joined them, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, but her expression resolute. "We will rebuild," she said, stronger than before. Chenoa appeared last, placing a gentle hand on Jack's shoulder. "You have become more than a guest," she whispered. "You are ours." The bond forged in battle deepened into something tender and true. That night, beneath the blanket of stars, promises were made not just of protection, but of partnership, love, and shared dreams. Jack knew the road ahead would not be easy, but with Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenoa by his side, he was ready to face whatever came. The village buzzed with quiet determination as the sun rose on a new day. The raid had tested their strength, but it also awakened a fierce spirit of resilience. Jack moved among the villagers, helping to repair walls, mend roofs, and clear debris. Each act of rebuilding felt like a stitch in the fabric of their renewed hope. Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenoa worked side by side with him, their presence both comforting and inspiring. The three widows, once bound only by shared loss, now seemed to glow with renewed purpose, a purpose that included Jack. During a midday break, Jack sat with Nayeli beneath a large cottonwood tree. She handed him a small carved wooden token, a symbol of protection in Apache culture. "This is for you," she said softly, "a reminder that you belong here, with us." Jack accepted it, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns. For the first time, he felt the weight of belonging settle comfortably on his shoulders. As days turned to weeks, the village life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Jack learned to hunt alongside the men, to weave alongside the women, and to navigate the delicate balance of a family shared by three strong, independent women. Ayana's gentle kindness softened Jack's rough edges, her laughter often filling their home like sunlight. Chenoa's quiet wisdom guided him during moments of doubt, her presence a steady anchor. Nayeli's fierce love pushed him to be brave and honorable. One evening, around the fire, the four of them shared stories, dreams, and quiet laughter. Jack realized that what had started as a desperate search for a bed had blossomed into something far greater: family love and home. "I never imagined this life," Jack admitted, looking at each of them in turn. Nayeli smiled, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. "Neither did we, but sometimes, life's greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places." The future was still uncertain, but Jack no longer feared it. With three women who believed in him, and a community that accepted him, he was ready to embrace whatever came. Together, they looked toward the horizon, toward a future built on trust, courage, and love. The seasons turned, painting the village with colors of change and growth. What had once been a place shadowed by fear and loss, now thrived with laughter, music, and the steady rhythm of life renewed. Jack stood at the edge of the village, watching children play under the warm sun, their carefree voices rising on the breeze. Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenoa worked nearby, their faces radiant with smiles and the quiet joy of belonging. He thought back to the day he arrived tired, alone, and seeking nothing more than a bed. Now, he stood surrounded by a family he had never imagined, bound not by convention but by shared strength and love. In Apache tradition, marriage was not just a union of two, but a partnership of community, support, and resilience. Jack had come to understand this deeply, living it every day with the three women who had taken him in, offered him love, and challenged him to be more. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson, the village gathered for a celebration, a ceremony to honor their survival, their unity, and the new life blossoming among them. Around the fire, drums beat a steady pulse, and voices rose in song. Jack stood with Nayeli, Ayana, and Chenoa, their hands intertwined, hearts beating as one. He realized that home wasn't just a place or a bed. It was the people you chose to stand with, the bonds you forged in fire and peace alike. "I came for shelter," Jack whispered to Nayeli, "but I found a family. And we found a husband," she replied with a smile, squeezing his hand. Ayana and Chenoa joined in, laughter and love weaving through the night air like the sweetest melody. As stars blanketed the sky, Jack looked up with gratitude. The road ahead would surely bring challenges, but together, they were ready. He had come for a bed and nearly ended up with 3 brides, a new family, and a future filled with hope.